Picky Penguins. This is NicoB, and today I'm going to be drawing my life for you all.
Yeah, I know this probably went out of style back in like 2014.
But I always promised if I somehow managed to hit 100,000 subscribers, I would make one of these videos. Besides, I thought you guys might enjoy learning a bit more about who I am and how I became the person I am today. My story began in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was born on October 1st, 1988. I apparently had quite the large head, and also what my mom referred to as honker thighs, which I always took to mean thighs that were so meaty that they made a honking sound when you poked them. I was apparently a very happy baby and tended to laugh at just about anything. My parents think that may have been indicative of my sense of humor, but I think I was probably just a bit too easily amused by things. My family moved around quite a bit when I was a baby, due to the numerous job offers and promotions my dad was getting. It really wasn't until I was about 6 years old that we finally settled down in Virginia, where I would spend the majority of my life. I was a very fortunate person. I know a lot of kids are born into a household where their parents fight, or verbally or even physically abusive. I was lucky enough to be born to an incredibly close and loving family. My two wonderful parents and older sister. I honestly couldn't have asked for a better family. As a kid, I loved creating things. I spent most of my time playing with my older sister, usually making things with Legos or drawing pictures together. I remember always being incredibly envious of my sister's drawing ability and would push myself to try and match her artistic prowess. In addition to drawing regular pictures, I also loved writing short stories and drawing comics. At the time, I was constantly being inspired by the TV shows that I watched, and whenever I got a new idea, I would immediately start writing a new story. This did inevitably lead to quite a few unfinished stories, though. One day I was invited to a friend's house where we played on one of the coolest things I'd ever seen at the time, the Super Nintendo. It was my first taste of gaming, and I was immediately hooked. I begged my parents to buy me a gaming system of my own, but my dad was against it, fearing that I would become addicted to it. And well, he wasn't exactly wrong in that regard. Eventually though, my dad caved in, and he bought me my very first gaming system, the PlayStation 1. And oh, what a wonderful period of gaming that was. Crash Bandicoot, Final Fantasy, Oddworld, Spyro, Legend of Legaia, Wild Arms, I played them all. However, easily the game that I sunk the most of my time into was RPG Maker for the PlayStation 1. The idea of creating my own video game was like a dream come true. Looking back, I'm not really sure why I dumped so many hours into creating my dumb little game, but only a handful of my friends ever actually played it. And also my dad. Thanks again, Dad. I was honestly a bit of a social butterfly as a kid. I was incredibly shy and introverted, and did not like being in any kind of social situations. I tended to be super awkward around people, which led to me being bullied quite a bit in elementary school. I also struggled quite a bit with OCD and generalized anxiety, which really killed a lot of my self-confidence. My dad did his best to help break me out of my shell by having me play on a baseball team. And while it did help make me a bit more social, I was still terrible at the game and was never particularly happy when I played.
Strike three! You're out!
All I really wanted to do was play video games, which ended up pushing away a lot of my friends who became more interested in other things, like sports and Boy Scouts. I began to see my geeky tendencies as something that would inevitably cause people to not like me anymore. So when I moved on to middle school, I decided for the most part to keep that side of myself hidden and instead do my best not to step on anyone's toes. As such, I was usually seen as the nice, quiet, smart guy in school. I had a small group of good friends throughout middle and high school, and while I was satisfied at the time, looking back, I feel like I wasn't really being completely true to myself. I could actually be really funny and even outgoing when I was around people I trusted, like my family. However, I was usually too afraid to be that way around other people, including my friends at the time. My dad was always worried that my grades would suffer due to my gaming tendencies. Fortunately for him, I was a smart kid. I worked my ass off in school, and even managed to become valedictorian of my high school class. Although I kept my grades up in college, that didn't stop me from going out and partying just about every weekend. It was also at this time that I learned that I actually had a decent singing voice, and even managed to join the all-male a cappella group at my college. I think some of my best college memories come from singing songs alongside those guys. College is also where I met one of my best friends, who, strangely enough, was actually someone I had gone to high school with and who ended up going to the same college as me. Despite playing on the same cross-country and soccer teams in high school, we didn't really get to know each other until college, where we happened to become partners in the same electronics course. We came to realize we both had the exact same sense of humor and interest in gaming, and we quickly became good pals. You guys may remember me bringing him up every now and then. I call him Ice Pick. I'll have to introduce him to you guys someday. Anyway, college was a fun time for me, but also a bit of a stressful one. This was the point in my life where I had to start making decisions about what kind of career I wanted. As a kid, I always wanted to grow up and create my own games. However, the more I researched about gaming jobs and positions, the less hopeful I became that I would ever manage to snag one in such a competitive market. So I decided to play it a bit safer and majored in applied computational physics, which sounds a lot more complicated than it really was. It was basically the regular physics degree with some additional computer science classes, just in case I did decide to pursue a career in gaming at all. I figured I'd do what pretty much everyone was doing at the time, and become some sort of engineer. It wasn't something I was particularly excited about, but it would likely pay well, and it seemed to be more reliable than my pipe dream of becoming a game designer. My plan was to get a little bit of work experience in my department after I graduated, before moving on to get my master's sometime down the line. However, after receiving my degree, I was met with a stiff job market that made getting a decent line of work with just a bachelor's near impossible. The only jobs I could manage to get were a bunch of menial temp jobs that had pretty much nothing to do with my degree. These jobs had me working 8-hour shifts, doing only about 3 to 4 hours of actual work that was so dull and mindless it was downright soul-crushing at times. During this time, I was also hard at work on another project. You see, back in college, I remembered my time playing RPG Maker as a kid, and how I always wanted to create a game of my own. I decided to look up the game's name online and see if there was possibly a PC counterpart. And it was then that I came across RPG Maker 2003 and began work on creating a new game that I called Forever's End. I also joined a well-known RPG Maker community called RMN and began posting my game's content publicly. Surprisingly, Forever's End ended up attracting a fair amount of attention around the site, even becoming the most subscribed to game for a time. This is also the time when I first began going by the username NicoB, which I intended to be a reference to GTA's main character Nico Bellic, but I ended up spelling the name wrong. I once again became engrossed in creating my game, and it felt so much more satisfying knowing that there were people out there aside from my family and friends who were playing and even enjoying it. Every night after work, I would spend hours absorbed in creating my game. However, after years of working on the game, I slowly began to question what exactly I was doing with my life. While I loved creating my game, I could never sell or make any kind of living off of it, and working on RPG Maker 2003 alone would never land me a job with any game company. Between these thoughts and hopping around the numerous pointless temp jobs, I became lost and pretty depressed. I felt trapped between doing what made me happy and what I could actually make a living with. It was during this period of uncertainty that I saw a few people in the RPG Maker community creating what they called Let's Try videos, where they played through demos of RPG Maker games and gave feedback to the developers. I thought this sounded like a fun way to give back to the community, so I decided to try my hand at making my own Let's Try videos. I began posting videos to my old YouTube channel that I had made around the same time as my RMN account, and given the same name, with the added 7700 because NicoB by itself was already taken. I also attempted to spice up my Let's Try videos with the added twist of being funny, so that people aside from the developers would want to watch them too. And it was amazing. I had so much fun making videos, reading people's comments, and getting feedback from the developers. I felt my creative muscles being flexed in a way that they never had before, and it was exhilarating. I'd say the turning point, though, was when a YouTuber by the name of Cryotic invited me on a couple of his live streams. The exposure from the streams brought in an influx of viewers from outside my small RPG Maker community, and suddenly what was originally a small hobby became my full-time focus. I began giving characters in the games unique voices and ad-libbing in random moments, and people seemed to really enjoy it. Over time, as my channel grew, I started making videos outside RPG Maker games, and eventually people weren't just coming to see the games, but also to see me and my reactions. It was mind-blowing, watching my subscriber counts slowly grow in the hundreds, to the thousands, and even the tens of thousands. It gave me such a boost in my confidence. I came to realize that the goofy and geeky part of myself that I kept hidden for so long was something that people actually enjoyed and even embraced. I could finally be that funny guy I always knew I was, but had been too afraid to show people. I've been making YouTube videos for almost 5 years now, and we've just surpassed 100,000 subscribers. 100,000 picky little penguins. It's honestly such an insane number. I could barely wrap my head around the idea of 100,000 people wanting to watch my videos. YouTube has become my full-time job now, and it's like a dream come true. I'm actually making a living off of doing something that I love, and I feel like not many people can say that. So I just want to say to all of you, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for helping give my life purpose, and for helping me to become the person that I always wanted to be. I'm not afraid to be my true self around people anymore. And it's all because of you guys. This community has introduced me to so many wonderful people, And it's even helped me in getting a little buddy of my own. Isn't that right, Bernie?
That's right, Nico. Thank you, penguins.
You picky penguins will always be an incredibly important part of my life, and I'm so happy and proud of the amazing community that has grown around this channel. I look forward to many more years of fun times alongside you all. I love you guys. Thank you so much for everything.
And, as always, guys, till next time, stay classy.